Oh, clock ticking until we get things popping in Cleveland. Plenty of unknowns where guys will land on Thursday, except for one. I think we all know at this point Trevor Lawrence has been the projected number one, probably even before he hit the college ranks. Could have went first last year and definitely going first this year. His 34-2 record with Clemson and that championship, that was just extra badges to his resume. Considered one of those generational talents when you're talking QBs. Let's check out Ryan Wilson's latest mock draft. And of course, I mentioned the lone guarantee at the top has to be Trevor Lawrence. The only thing that we didn't know coming into the season, who was going to take number one. At one point, it was the Jets. And now, of course, the Jags. You can say maybe Zach Wilson and Mac Jones, those two, maybe slight guarantees. When we're talking about QBs at the run at the top of the draft, that might be something you want to keep your eyes on. We're talking the top 10 with T. Lawrence and others. All right, let's bring in Ryan Wilson to get this going. 6 days away from the big day in Cleveland and R-Dub. At this point, I have to ask, at one point, maybe before the season, mid-season, did Trevor Lawrence kind of maybe slot out of that one spot for you? Because it's rare that we get a guy that's dominating that number one spot. We haven't seen that since a guy like Andrew Luck.
That's right. From start to finish, this has been all about Trevor Lawrence. William Hill, he's right now minus 10,000 to be the first overall pick. So if you're feeling great about this and you have some money laying around, put it on Trevor Lawrence because you're going to make that money back. But here's the thing. You go back to last May, my first mock draft of the 2021 campaign after the 2020 draft concluded, it was Trevor Lawrence. 34 mock drafts later, it's still Trevor Lawrence. There was a time early in the college football season where Justin Fields had that hot start. His first 3 games at Ohio State in 2020, he had 11 incompletions and 11 touchdowns. Then he hit a rough patch against Indiana, and the season was stopping and starting in the Big Ten. Throughout it all, we saw Trevor Lawrence play at a high level. He sat out for a few weeks because of COVID, came back, and still played at the level we expected him to. So at no point during the season did we see a Joe Burrow-type player, whether it was Mac Jones or Zach Wilson or even Justin Fields, overtake the number one spot in this draft cycle. It's always been about Trevor Lawrence, and that's how it's going to be next Thursday when we get to Cleveland and Roger Goodell reads that name off the card. If it ain't Trevor Lawrence at number one, to quote Pete Prisco, Urban Meyer should be fired. So it's definitely going to happen. Jaguars have their quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years. All
right, so Trevor Lawrence, of course, a lock at number one. But when we're looking at the top 10, we talk about the QBs. Teams are getting hungry, possible trades. We've seen other teams kind of trade up, trade down to possibly get a hand on one of those QBs. How many can we see go, though, in the top 10?
Well, we know 3 are going in the top 3, and then things get interesting. What's going to happen at 4 with Atlanta? 5 are the Bengals. 6 are the Dolphins. And there's going to be a conversation about the teams outside the top 10 wanting to trade up for those 2 remaining quarterbacks. At 15, we know the Patriots are sitting there. At 19, it's Washington football team. At 20, the Bears. 24, the Steelers. 28, the Saints. All those teams could be in conversation to try to move inside the top 10 to get the last 3, whether it's Mac Jones, Trey Lance, or Justin Fields. I honestly, Brandon, think that 5 QBs go in the top 10. If one happens to sneak out of the top 10, I can't imagine they get past 12 unless something has happened that none of the media know about, that we haven't heard about from those folks around the league. But it certainly feels like this could be a monumental draft. And we know this as well. Quarterbacks always get pushed up in this day and age in a quarterback-heavy league. If you don't have a quarterback, it doesn't matter if the other 21 players of your team are Hall of Famers. You're not going very far into the playoffs. So teams overdraft these quarterbacks. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. See Mitch Trubisky and Carson Wentz. So I suspect top 10, there'll be some trade-ups to get those guys. And worst case, I think by the 12th pick, all 5 QBs are gone.
We get 5 in the top 10. That'd be the most since 2018. Back with Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen win the top 10 there. Let's talk about some of the guys that opted out this past season, those locks. When we're talking the first-round talent like a Penei Sewell, a Micah Parsons. Did last season kind of impact them along with others when you're talking about the draft stock the closer we get to the day?
Yeah, that's a mixed bag. So you mentioned Penei Sewell. It didn't affect his draft stock at all. Micah Parsons, I talked to teams that were unaffected by him not playing. They didn't care one way or the other. He was still a top 5 talent. The issue with Micah Parsons will be the off-field related issues, the maturity concerns he had at Penn State, and whether that pushes him down Caleb Farley, another guy who opted out, top 10 talent. Teams that I talked to didn't care that he opted out as well. The cornerback was my cornerback one until he had that back procedure a few weeks ago. And there are legitimate concerns around the league with some teams that they're not sure how that back injury is going to work out. He had previously torn his ACL. This was the second time he's had that procedure. So he could go from a top 10 pick to maybe the 20s or to the bottom of the first round. So some of these players that opted out, it wasn't because of the lack of playing time that had teams concerned. It was the off-field stuff or the injury concerns. So Rashawn Slater's another guy who opted out of Northwestern. No one cares. He's going to be a top 15 pick for sure. Jamar Chase is another name. But some names that did opt out and teams will take a second, third, fourth look at. Greg Rousseau, the edge rusher out of Miami. He didn't come back in 2020. We would have loved to have seen him play. Walker Little, the offensive tackle who opted out at Stanford, he took a lot of time off because of injuries, but then in 2020 didn't play as well. He could have been a day one pick, and now he may end up going in day two, early day three.
Those guys, of course, affected with the QBs at the top. And then that follows up with my question, Ryan. I got to ask you, when exactly does this draft start? Does it start after the first three QBs, fourth with Atlanta, fifth with Cincinnati? What exactly do we start to see, okay, this unfolding a little bit?
For me, it starts at 3 because I want to see what the 49ers are going to do in terms of their quarterback. Is it going to be Mac Jones, as some people think, myself included? Is it going to be Justin Fields or Trey Lance? What's going to happen there? Because that will set the scene for the rest of the draft. But I'm with you that at 4, when the Falcons go on the clock, that's when things are going to get truly interesting because we have no idea what position they're going to target, which direction they're going to go. Are they going to trade down? Are they going to take Justin Fields? It feels like Arthur Blank, the owner, is more than happy to roll with Matt Ryan, his 36-year-old quarterback, for at least another year, maybe 2. And if so, are you taking Kyle Pitts there? Kyle Pitts is can't miss in my mind, or as close as you can get to that. Is another team going to try to trade up for the leftover Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance to that number 4 spot, and what's it going to cost? And then once you get to 5, are the Bengals going to do the right thing and take Penei Sewell, or are they going to take Kyle Pitts and or Jamar Chase should they be there? So for me, Brandon, I want to see what the 49ers do at 3, but once we get to 4, I think that's when the rubber meets the road, so to speak, in terms of other teams interested in the quarterback, trying to make their move up, assuming that the Falcons don't draft a quarterback to be the next Matt Ryan.
Well, one thing for sure in your mock, you 1-for-1 with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, you can't go wrong. You're 100% so far, so good to see how that pans out on Thursday the rest of the way there. Ryan Wilson, tap it in. Appreciate the time, my friend. Don't forget, you can catch up with the Pick 6 Pod with Will Brent along with John Breach. The guys breaking it down. I mentioned we're just a few days away from the NFL draft in Cleveland. Trevor Lawrence is going number 1. I'm calling it already. I don't know the rest.
Going out on a limb, bud.
Right, and Ryan will try to help us out, of course, with those mocks as well. Download and give them a follow.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.